Hello, this is Matthew Tabor, and I'm doing a presentation on the Netherlands, which I hope to visit someday in the very near future. Now, the Netherlands, some people call the Netherlands actually Holland, and they feel that it's interchangeable, but that's actually incorrect. Holland is just one part of the Netherlands. The Netherlands is north of Belgium and east of Germany, right on the North Sea. There are 12 provinces, one of which is, of course, Holland. And three major cities in the Netherlands are Amsterdam, which is a very big tourist spot, The Hague, which is a center for global justice, and Rotterdam. The people of the Netherlands, which from now on I'll call the Dutch, are culturally diverse, and they're considered to be some of the most open-minded people in the world. When you interact with them, you're going to notice that they're straightforward, direct, and they speak their minds. Sometimes this comes across as very rude, but it's just their way of displaying their honesty. At the same time, they're very down to earth. And what that basically means is they do not have any errors about them. And one quote that illustrates the Dutch that I found is just act normal, then you're acting crazy enough as it is. That's actually saying in the Netherlands. And when you go there and you're curious about what you should wear when you're packing for the trip, uh, basically they're very modest dressers, and certainly they're going to dress elegantly, but that does not mean they like to be showy and flaunt their wealth if they are wealthy. That's considered to be rude and almost disrespectful. Now, when you arrive there and you're meeting and greeting some Dutch people, what you want to do is have a very formal introduction and introduce yourself the first couple sentences, of course, but not a lot of smiling. That's considered to be almost kind of superficial if you're to be doing that frequently when you're interacting with somebody for the first time. Use a firm handshake with good eye contact, and you shake hands with both men and women. In addition, if you have an event set up, you want to make sure that you're on time, be very punctual, and also try not to change the plans suddenly. The Dutch do not like that. And when you're in a conversation with the Dutch, one thing that comes across as interesting to me, at least, is that politics, you certainly can talk about that, but keep in mind that they are very well informed. Now, the reason why that comes across as very interesting is a lot of times people say, don't talk politics when you meet somebody for the first time. That may be a turnoff. But the Dutch are very open about that. When you are discussing it, though, it's important not to have a lot of emotion when you're discussing it. Use a lot of logic and facts. Be calmly, composed, and directly. Don't use a lot of gestures and don't speak loudly. It's considered to be rude. And eventually, what is required in the conversation is coming to some sort of general consensus and having some sort of sense of equality at the end of the conversation. In addition, as a side note, what I found is that you should try not to compliment a person because that puts them above others. And in the Netherlands, that's considered rude. Now, when you're dining, food. Very similar to the United States. If you go to a formal restaurant, you want to wait for the host or waiter to seat you. If it's informal, grab an empty table. If you're not too sure what type of restaurant it is, then just wait for a hostess or a waiter to come over and tell you what to do. When you're eating, make sure that you have both the knife and the fork in your hand at all times. The fork should be in your left hand and the knife in the right hand. Dinner is generally served early, and if you're going to a restaurant and there's a host and or hostess, they will sit at the opposite ends of the table. So when you're being seated, or you're sitting down, finding a seat, make sure you don't sit at the end of the table. Also, if you're curious about tips, it is law that the service charge is added to the bill. so it basically already includes a tip. But if the service was so exceptional that you feel there needs to be extra amount of money on top of that, feel free to do that. Generally, it's 10% of the bill. Now, next comes to coffee shops versus cafes. There is a big difference in the Netherlands. Here in the United States, they're almost interchangeable. They both in the Netherlands have coffee and food. However, the big difference is that coffee shops in the Netherlands are also places in which you can purchase marijuana and smoke it. So you want to be aware of that when you go there. If you want coffee and food, go to a cafe, which is I have a picture on the right here. If you, in addition, want to purchase marijuana legally, then you go to the coffee shop, and they should be pretty well advertised when you see the shop. As you can see here, the coffee shop says Smoky. A lot of times the coffee shops might have pictures of Bob Marley or be very colorful, have psychedelic colors, and the cafes are very very modest, just like the one on the right hand side. And as a side note, in terms of smoking marijuana, it's a big reason why a lot of people come to Amsterdam in particular is to buy marijuana legally. It is important, though, to note that you can only buy it and smoke it or eat it inside of the establishment. You can't do that out in public. And to wrap things up, I just have a few things that you might want to think about if you're ever to visit the Netherlands. Some things that I personally would like to go see. And, first off, obviously European football is a really big thing, so that'd be cool to go see a big football game. And cheese there is phenomenal, according to some relatives that I have that live there. So you can see a cheese market there. Taking a nice canal ride, on a boat down the canal, seeing some of the beautiful architecture and landscape will be one thing I want to do. And in the center here, you'll see colorful fields. Those are actually tulips. In the springtime, it's beautiful. They have tulip fields of all different colors, and people can walk through them. So it's really an amazing sight. And then the art museums are very big there. Rembrandt is probably one of the most famous artists that came from the Netherlands. So I included a painting of Rembrandt here, and those are at least 5 things I personally would like to visit. So hopefully you learned a little bit more about the Netherlands, what to expect if you are to visit there, and I hope that you do visit there. I certainly am planning on doing that.